A young man wakes with his skull pounding amid a noisy crowd in an unfamiliar hall, barely forcing his eyes open as the chaos around him makes absolutely zero sense. Because dozens of strangers are scattered across a vast sterile chamber with sealed doors, and the sight shocks him upright, wide awake faster than any alarm could manage, wondering who everyone is and whether this nightmare comes with kidnapping charges attached, while another spike of pain forces him to clutch his head and search his memory. Until one strange letter finally resurfaces, dragging him back to how this started. His name is Shaolin, a freshly graduated gamer still hunting for real employment, though power leveling clients already pays the bills because his mechanical skills are genuinely cracked, and another impossible comeback earns him a clean victory plus plenty of online praise. With the match finished, he collapses inside a room where cleanliness clearly lost ranked, then lazily scrolls his phone, killing time while his hard-earned win settles in, only for one casual swipe to pull up memories he would rather leave buried. His father branded him useless, so he moved out determined to uncover something he excels at. But just 2 days into independence, an unexpected knock interrupted that very modest plan. A late-night courier delivered a strange letter addressed specifically to Shaolin at his new apartment, and the instant he tore it open, blue energy leaked out like seriously bad news, wrapping around him in glowing symbols before he could even process the magical ambush. As Dawn Academy declared him a probationary freshman and initiated forced teleportation, Constant Screen apparently deleted, leaving the emptied envelope behind while its blue vortex finished dragging him away. Now back in the hall, Shaolin realizes the letter really dumped him inside creepy Dawn Academy, when a stern uniformed man notices him awake and greets the late arrival. Roasting him for lying unconscious 3 hours like hibernation somehow became an entrance exam. While the other captives demand identities, exits, and police before this kidnapping gets any weirder. Their host answers the panic with one deeply unimpressed click of his tongue, then draws a sword and floods the blade with enough purple energy to erase all debate, carving a violent arc through the chamber as debris crashes above the terrified freshmen before ordering everyone to shut their mouths, which finally patches the hall's volume bug. He berates admissions for sending another batch full of complaining idiots every single cycle, then warns that one sleeper already wasted class time, so today's explanation stays brutally short, leaving Shaolin tense but focused as the man's absurd power sinks in. The swordsman introduces himself as Cheon, advisor to Dawn Academy's first-year Class 7, where chosen students can train for power, wealth, authority, entry into new worlds, even immortality. A sales pitch delivered with enough menace to make questions feel medically inadvisable. Cheon ends the lecture, orders everyone to collect identification, and begins their potential evaluations, using futuristic scanners that make Shao wonder whether Earth secretly installed a space colony expansion. But the first candidate scores only 24 total points and gets dismissed as a scrub, whereas the next student's 32 earns a rare nod for looking reasonably decent overall, until Cheon still labels those stats painfully average and threatens to report admissions for dumpster diving, sending applicant after applicant onward until Shao finally stands beneath the scanner himself. But his evaluation drags toward a full minute, far beyond everyone else's 6-second scan, and Chin's growing interest suggests the scanner may have finally found something worth studying, until the machine completes its suspiciously long calculation and releases the anxious freshman at last. Chin stops him immediately, convinced that extra processing time might signal a genuine treasure, only for the displayed numbers to hit the advisor with psychic damage instead, listing Shaolin at 2 strength, 2 agility, 2 intelligence, and 3 constitution, a total attribute value of 9, single digits on humanity's least flattering spreadsheet. Chin groans that Dawn Academy has never produced stats anywhere near this terrible, calling him once-in-a-lifetime deadweight, while Shao privately wishes they would simply send him home. The advisor admits the long scan had raised hopes for a gifted student, then turns away and dismisses the entire result as completely useless on sight, prompting the watching freshman to chant trash until humiliation fills the chamber around him. But hearing that insult only reminds him how relentlessly it followed him since childhood, and his clenched fists say this new hellhole will not keep writing the same script. When Chin declares the entrance test suicidal for him and reaches to withhold his ID, the card goes flying, but Shao lunges forward and snatches it from the air, insisting no collection of numbers gets to decide his worth before he tries. So Chin accepts the challenge and predicts reality will humble that brave mouth quickly. A curious female student asks what he meant earlier by calling someone gifted, and Chin describes heaven-favored talents destined for strength, while everyone else must first survive admission, and that warning drains every confident face as the freshmen realize survival is not guaranteed, before a composed woman directly challenges Chin's promise of unimaginable wealth and power, asking the obvious question nobody likes reading in magical contracts: what will everything cost? Chin identifies her as Gu Xiaoyu, the group's highest scorer without a special talent, then names credits and exchange points as currency, which can buy anything, an answer she calmly accepts before stepping aside without complaint. Watching nearby, Shao notes her refined manner and Chin's unusual politeness towards someone clearly promising, while the advisor teaches everyone to inspect their status by mentally confirming their attribute values, causing each golden ID plate to summon a personalized holographic interface in midair, where Xiao's profile shows 0 currency, F- combat ratings, 60 remaining years, and a brutal death penalty. Every death deducts 10 years, sending shorter-lived freshmen into immediate panic over their horrifying balances. He quietly smiles while the room melts down around everyone else's actuarial jump scare, because a private prompt suddenly detects an abnormal fluctuation and unlocks a hidden talent, leaving him stunned that the Academy's alleged trash has secretly rolled something unprecedented instead. Though the system's strange announcement only multiplies his confusion instead of answering anything useful, especially when nobody else reacts, proving this personal interface is visible and audible only to him. The database cannot identify the talent's name or grade, apparently lacking any matching precedent, but it boosts every ability's learning efficiency 100%, while its active effect copies one F-rated ability for 3 minutes, usable once every 7 days, with every effect improving as the unnamed talent gains levels. Since the first owner earns naming rights, he skips the dramatic brainstorming and keeps things simple, christening it top student before the system begins evaluating its rank on the spot. And the answer comes back SS rank, instantly turning his goofy placeholder into a monster-tier secret, one Chuan's own authority failed to detect during the public scan earlier. So beneath those humiliating stats, Xiao has quietly awakened an SS-ranked talent instead, a hidden trump card that could be the difference between surviving and becoming Academy trivia. Nearby, the freshman with 9 remaining years protests that one death would erase everything, earning a swift smack from Chin, who apparently teaches basic arithmetic through direct impact, before confirming death would finish him, but calling that situation a jackpot rather than a curse. Outside the academy, life only decreases and fatal danger stays fatal. Here, lifespan becomes earnable currency, leaving the rattled student bruised, confused, and finally quiet enough to listen properly now, as Chin explains the academy offers a ladder toward power, knowledge, wealth, and altered destiny, even extended life or theoretical immortality for anyone who earns enough credits and exchange points. Gu Xiaoyu asks whether this lifespan law works only inside campus or everywhere, and learns it activates automatically for every enrolled student while they remain anywhere on Earth. With explanations finished, Chin announces the entrance test before anyone finds another terrifying question, raises one hand, and orders the entire class to stay exactly where they stand, as the facility prepares teleportation and begins a countdown with no destination displayed yet. At 3, Gu remains composed while the other freshmen brace for another forced transfer. At 2, Xiao steadies himself, knowing this trip finally decides whether he belongs. And at 1, violet energy engulfs the whole class before every candidate vanishes, leaving Chin alone to complain that no gifted student means another weak instructor evaluation. Though Chin can only clutch his head and curse the miserable luck of Class 7, until loud laughter interrupts his private spiral and makes him turn around sharply, revealing a cigar-smoking instructor who greets old Chin with the confidence of someone bringing receipts, namely 2 talented students from Class 3, 1 A rank and 1 B rank respectively, plus a 40-point genius. Though talent matters more, prompting talk of Britain's rumored double S freshman. Chin dismisses that story as debunked, since no central record supports double talents and even S ranks remain incredibly rare. Far away, the candidates materialize deep inside a goblin den, immediately assaulted by a foul smell, forcing Xiao to cover his mouth while everyone struggles to orient themselves there, until his interface appears and replaces the confusion with an actual objective at last, demanding they escape the forest and reach safety within 1 hour, with bonus rewards for hunting goblins, while every preparatory student receives 1 randomized weapon from a gift pack up front. The system also removes death penalties for this test, a mercy Nobitra expected, and the relieved freshmen celebrate knowing failure will not delete 10 years from their accounts. Xiao opens his own pack and receives an F-rated novice staff with the mental-powered energy ball skill, which instantly unlocks level 1 basic wand mastery at 0 out of 100 experience, making the Academy's skills and progression feel almost identical to the games he knows best. With familiar rules finally on his side, he decides to test the new weapon immediately, channeling violet energy through the novice staff until its crystal crackles with unstable power, then slamming the charged weapon downward and blasting the rocky ground beneath him, leaving a smoking crater behind as his first magical experiment proves the staff definitely works. The successful cast grants 2 wand experience points, proving weapon use directly trains its matching mastery, while top student's passive doubles that growth, giving him twice everyone else's leveling speed. An exciting advantage until a sharp mental sting reminds him this build still has limits, because his tiny mana reserve is already empty, leaving him unable to cast another energy ball. A nearby greatsword user unlocks Spot's basic greatsword mastery and celebrates earning experience with every qualified swing, but Xiao realizes aimless motions do not count. Exhaustion is real, and the 1-hour timer prevents comfortable grinding. To exploit his accelerated learning without draining mana, he decides a physical weapon fits better. When Gu Xiaoyu approaches with her short sword and offers a direct trade instead, reasoning the staff's mental cost likely scales with intelligence, making it better suited to her, while his miserable magic stats practically beg for the simpler blade instead anyway. Xiao confirms her name, introduces himself properly, and agrees the exchange makes sense immediately, receiving her calm approval before they finally swap their mismatched starter weapons there. He hands over the staff with one warning. Energy Ball still requires careful aim, then gains an F- novice short sword and instantly unlocks level 1 basic short sword mastery, which feels much better, and convinces him that a reliable teammate would smooth the test. So he starts asking Gu to cooperate before finishing the sentence at all, only for a massive greatsword wielder to charge in and make the same proposal. The newcomer flaunts strength, constitution, and agility above 10 while targeting the class's highest scorer, introducing himself as Wang Dalin and claiming he looks far more dependable than Xiao. But Gu answers the loud sales pitch with a long, unreadable silence of her own. Gu rejects him outright and walks away, leaving Wang's confident recruitment pitch face down in the dirt, as nearby candidates laugh at his failure, forcing the embarrassed giant to bark for silence. His humiliation hardens into anger, and he searches for someone convenient to blame instead, until his glare lands on Xiao, whose presence suddenly looks like the safest available target. Wang storms over and grabs him, demanding to know why he keeps staring at him, then mocks his single-digit attributes and weapon study, declaring him useless weight for any team. Xiao calmly answers that everyone passes through personal ability, so Wang should conserve energy for the trial. Advice the furious brute answers by gripping his shirt and promising an immediate demonstration of ability. Yet Xiao only smirks because something behind Wang has already scheduled that demonstration first, and tells him the promised chance is gone before the confused bully can even turn. A goblin suddenly drops from above, claws extended toward Wang's completely unguarded back, then rakes across him in a bloody ambush, turning his intimidation routine into field training instantly. Wounded and furious, Wang curses the creature while blood runs down his face, and the goblin springs again, giving him barely enough time to react at all, before his greatsword finally sweeps upward and catches the attacker with a brutal counterstrike. Wang kills it, then admits the ambush nearly finished him, despite his loudly advertised stat sheet. Still embarrassed, he accuses Xiao of watching quietly just to enjoy his humiliation, only to follow the young man's gaze and notice countless glowing eyes gathering behind him. A full goblin horde emerges from the forest, surrounding the scattered candidates with overwhelming numbers, and the entire group erupts in screams as the entrance test finally drops its friendly mask. Panic becomes immediate bloodshed as candidates fight, flee, and wounded failures begin dissolving into blue data. While goblins swarm the battlefield, proving a penalty-free death can still feel brutally convincing. Xiao blocks one attack at close range and realizes every impact feels completely real, as Gu blasts another goblin aside with purple magic, adding smell to the simulation's details, while the crackling staff demonstrates that Pain also ignored the virtual environment disclaimer entirely. Bloodied but standing, he cuts down his attacker and confirms touch feels equally authentic, meaning only the surroundings are data. Ordinary people still experience real terror, wounds, and helplessness here. When someone notices goblins avoid the nearby cave, survivors abandon the field and rush inside, with Xiao joining the retreat after one last guarded look toward the pursuing monsters. The cavern offers temporary safety, but he immediately senses the mercy comes with an expiration date, confirmed by a protection timer showing just under 30 minutes before the shelter becomes vulnerable. Rather than panic, he grips the short sword and forces himself to analyze their position, because sitting quietly until protection expires would simply turn the cave into a waiting room for death. He begins drilling proper strikes, earning 2 doubled experience points for a correctly executed motion, knowing his terrible strength and constitution demand efficient technique before he can risk another real fight. Time burns down until barely 2 minutes remain, and the system warns that protection is ending, sending injured candidates into despair because even ranged attacks cannot reliably hit the fast goblins. Amid the shouting, Gu sits against the wall in complete silence, watching the situation without panic, while Xiao keeps swinging nearby, treating every remaining second as one more chance to improve, until sweat and exhaustion nearly fold him, though his desperate training refuses to stop. Gu finally calls his training pointless, calculating that normal progress to level 2 requires roughly an hour, and although her sharp analysis impresses him, she has overlooked one invisible variable. Her estimate is correct for ordinary learners, since the mission's deadline allows no conventional shortcut, but top student doubles his gains, reducing the impossible schedule to half its normal length. His basic shortsword mastery already sits at 98 experience, leaving level 2-1 clean strike away, so he thanks her concern, calls it familiarization, and asks what she learned from watching the goblins. Gu is surprised he noticed her observation, confirming both candidates had been studying more than appearances suggested, prompting his gamer analogy about reading the guide before pulling mobs. Her confusion proves she never queues. Returning to business, they judge goblin offense and defense around F rank, with vulnerable hearts and skulls, meaning individual fights are manageable once candidates stop letting fear perform the monster's damage for them. Without courage to attack, however, even favorable numbers cannot produce any chance of victory, and with 2 minutes remaining, the pair prepares to leave before protection collapses around everyone, when Wang blocks their path and angrily demands to know where they think they are going, repeating his offer to Gu while declaring that bringing Xiao along would amount to suicide. But she dismisses safe zone travel as easy, revealing her real real target is the Goblin King and its reward, which leaves Wang shouting that the boss is optional, unseen, and probably far beyond their survival odds. Xiao argues any listed quest must be completable, so the absent boss likely awaits a hidden trigger, and Gu eliminates time and survivor count, concluding the number of goblin kills is most plausible. Their theory predicts the king will appear after candidates eliminate some fixed percentage of its forces, but a terrified archer asks why anyone should summon worse trouble instead of simply escaping. Xiao argues failure carries no penalty while victory pays heavily, making simple retreat the wasteful option, because more credits and exchange points justify going all out when no one actually dies here. With protection ending anyway, several frightened survivors accept the logic and commit to fighting together, while Wang tries reclaiming the spotlight, boasting 32 stats and asking who is carrying whom, only for Gu to call that barely above average and calmly request his comparison. Her total is 46, delivered so casually that Wang's entire resume expires on contact, before she politely asks him to stop talking. While the surrounding candidates struggle not to laugh, the humble giant finally falls silent, painfully aware that every witness heard the statistical execution, as Xiao privately marvels that her total exceeds his own by more than 5 times. Then Gu takes command, inviting reward seekers to unite, so their different objectives can support one another, assigning Wang's superior durability to draw goblin aggression from the front, which he grudgingly accepts, before arranging ranged fighters into 3-person formations that provide covering fire and maximize kills. And when she reaches Xiao's assignment, the low-stat swordsman already understands his safest useful role, harassing enemies and finishing weakened escapees, avoiding direct duels while collecting his required kills. The newly organized group leaves the cave together, with Wang and Gu anchoring its front, and their unwilling tank immediately cleaves through several charging goblins with one greatsword sweep, while archers positioned behind him loose a coordinated volley across the charging pack, and multiple arrows slam into their targets, staggering monsters before they can reach formation. One goblin still slips through and lunges at a terrified archer's exposed side, but Xiao arrives with his trained short sword raised, intercepting the attack exactly as planned. His intercept becomes a clean finishing slash, saving the archer and recording his first goblin kill, exactly validating the stamina-saving strategy. Avoid head-on exchanges and attack only when the final opening appears, before he repeats the method against another wounded target, raising his personal count to 2, then predicts a third goblin's movement and cuts it down without entering its direct line of attack, while another precisely timed strike brings his total to 4 and keeps his limited stamina intact. Onlookers notice every attack lands at maximum vulnerability, while Wang calls it luck and kill-stealing, but Gu recognizes deliberate spacing, predictive movement, and consistent avoidance of each monster's vision. Those efficient kills grant 6 experience, pushing basic short sword mastery into level 2 with 4 points carried over, thanks partly to 2 obsessive months inside an immersive VR game that trained his combat timing, until a new system alert interrupts the memory, reacting immediately to his unusually fast promotion, as Dawn Academy names him the first freshman reaching skill level 2 and awards Heavy Slash, a charged strength-based melee strike whose repeated use drains stamina, with 1-minute intervals recommended. With 4 goblins down, he spots an energy-weakened target and realizes his final required kill is waiting, then drives his blade downward, securing kill number 5 and completing the first optional quest. He finally relaxes with 1 reward secured, unaware the battlefield has started changing around them, because every surviving goblin suddenly dissolves into blue pixels, confusing even Wang at the front, and the giant demands an explanation as a system broadcast begins buzzing across the battlefield, announcing 1/3 of the goblin population eliminated, the hidden condition fulfilled, and boss activation underway. A mountain-sized silhouette rises beyond the trees, revealing that their trigger theory was exactly right. And Xiao faces the colossal horned Goblin King, whose entrance makes ordinary goblins look travel-sized. As the Goblin King inhales deeply, then releases a roar powerful enough to distort the air, sending a green shockwave across the clearing before anyone can organize their first attack, and forcing candidates to clutch their ears as the pressure threatens to rupture eardrums. The terrified archer recognizes the roar as more than noise, but her warning comes late, while Xiao and Gu endure the blast and study the monster instead of scattering blindly, until its enormous health bar appears, confirming the horned giant as their active boss. The dungeon's Goblin King, now standing alone after every lesser goblin vanished from the field. Xiao realizes the disappearance has concentrated the entire encounter around this single overwhelming enemy, whose absurd health bar has one freshman wondering whether it might outlive his remaining lifespan, before the panicked student quits and runs, despite Xiao urgently warning that random movement is dangerous, because goblins have narrow vision, a weakness that previously enabled careful flanking attacks. But they compensate with exceptionally sharp hearing and smell, making noisy escape practically suicidal. His footsteps instantly seize the king's attention, placing the towering boss directly behind him. Yet Wang rejects caution, rallying everyone to overwhelm the monster through superior numbers, then charges overhead with his greatsword, volunteering himself as the opening argument for that plan. Though the Goblin King's glowing eye tracks him instantly, and the attack never reaches its target, because one casual counterstrike crushes Wang's midsection and folds his momentum backward immediately, before the impact launches him into the ground hard enough to shatter the surrounding stone. Wongscrim screams beneath the debris, his greatsword landing uselessly beside the crater that holds him, and moments later his body dissolves into blue data, eliminating the formation's loudest tank. Wong's instant elimination shatters morale, and terrified candidates abandon their weapons while sprinting in every direction. But the first loud runner barely manages a scream before the king closes the distance, and one colossal stomp crushes him into the ground, punishing panic with immediate elimination. The boss follows by sweeping its massive club through several more fleeing candidates at once, launching the female archer helplessly across the clearing before she crashes hard nearby. And when she looks up, the king already towers above her with its club raised, until Gu fires a concentrated purple blast into its arm, interrupting the execution just in time. The spell buys her escape, yet removes only a tiny sliver from the enormous health bar, confirming her shot missed the vital target and ordinary limb damage is severely reduced. So she realizes meaningful damage requires striking true vital points rather than wasting attacks on limbs, a problem her original strategy expected frontliners to solve while ranged fighters attacked safely from behind. With Wang eliminated and everyone scattering, that formation collapses before their mental energy can matter, leaving Gu alone beneath the king's shadow as its next strike descends toward her, and forcing her to admit the carefully calculated plan assumed far more courage than reality provided. A distant survivor screams for her to run, but warning alone cannot create an escape when Xiao suddenly dashes through the blind side with a charged slash, stealing the boss's attention, and the furious king whirls toward the nearest attacker, exactly as his combat instincts predicted, before its club smashes down, yet he evades the blow and leaves it cratering empty ground. From that exchange, he identifies a simple aggro rule. The boss prioritizes whoever stands closest, then orders survivors to rotate its attention, keep their distance, and exploit the resulting openings. The frightened archer steadies herself and agrees to try his rotating distance strategy despite trembling hands, while Xiao assigns Gu's superior attack power to chip away whenever the formation creates openings. Both ranged women prepare simultaneously, one knocking an arrow while Gu charges another violet sphere. Then arrows and repeated magic blasts hammer the king's torso, finally shaving visible health from its bar. Their pressure keeps it occupied, convincing the archer that the improvised plan is actually working, and Xiao urges them to maintain the barrage while he continues directing its attention. The wounded boss suddenly roars again, signaling a new attack before anyone can retreat, then claps its massive hands together, compressing force into a devastating radial counterattack that erupts across the clearing in a violent green shockwave, scattering rocks and fighters alike. The blast catches the archer, whose body begins dissolving as Xiao's warning arrives too late, and when the debris clears, the Goblin King remains upright despite the damage already inflicted, while only Xiao and Gu still remain standing together against the towering boss, leaving her to ask whether two exhausted survivors retain any realistic chance of winning, before he checks whether her remaining mental energy can support several more magic blasts, and learns she can manage only two at most before exhausting herself completely. Enough, he decides, because a single accurate headshot should inflict dramatically greater damage, and when she doubts her accuracy against its speed, he promises to make the boss stop, activating Top Student Scholar interface and scanning the Goblin King for a copyable ability, then copying F-rank Shockwave, which damages targets within 5 meters and stuns them for 3 seconds. The talent once dismissed as useless now turns the boss's own control skill into their only opening. With the borrowed shockwave active for 3 minutes, Xiao finally steps fully onto the battlefield, gripping his short sword as the copied skill reveals a 30-second cooldown between activations. When the king raises both fists for another shockwave, he charges directly beneath them, knowing its version requires both hands, while his triggers simply by slamming the blade downward. He fires the copied skill at point-blank range just as the original begins casting, and the colliding shockwaves explode between his sword and the king's descending hands. Because skills can be interrupted, Xiao's faster activation cancels the boss's larger attack entirely, leaving the Goblin King recoiling in stunned disbelief as smoke coils around its body. The gamble works. He plants his sword, watches the giant stagger, and confirms the opening. Yet the cooldown prevents immediate repetition, so victory still has a very inconvenient loading bar. With 22 seconds remaining, the king recovers first and reaches forward with one enormous hand, until Gu's purple blast detonates against it, buying Xiao another fraction of breathing room. The explosion drives it backward and cuts deeper into the boss's already depleted health bar, but Gu warns she has only one shot left and cannot sustain another rescue. Enraged, the king hoists a massive boulder overhead, abandoning finesse for pure geological overkill. With shockwaves still cooling down, Xiao realizes the boulder is too close to evade completely, then smiles at the ugly alternative, choosing calculation over any attempt to escape, and takes the crushing impact on his left arm instead of dodging at all. Gu screams his name as the boulder smashes down and blue damage effects erupt around him, but he emerges injured yet standing, assuring her he is fine while the cooldown reaches 10 seconds. 7 seconds remain as the king charges again, while Shockwave's 5-meter limit forbids retreat, so Xiao moves directly beneath its center of mass, enduring danger until only 3 remain. He raises the short sword for one last precisely timed strike, refusing to waste the opening, and drives it into the ground exactly when the copied skill finishes cooling down, Shockwave activates once more, pouring violet force through the blade at point-blank range, and catches the boss before its descending blow can turn him into another crater. With the giant frozen for 3 seconds, he immediately shouts for Gu to fire, and her final violet sphere travels straight up the staff, detonating against the king's head. Its remaining health vanishes as blue pixels spread across the smoking, shattered face. Then the colossal body collapses, confirming both the Goblin King's death and optional quest 2. Xiao finally allows himself relief, but Gu runs after him before celebration can begin, because defeating the boss never completed their mandatory objective of reaching the safe zone. With the deadline already expiring, she realizes the clock may defeat what a king could not. Elsewhere, Academy officials gather around a conference table to review every freshman class's results, where the admissions director reports 1,360 students across 12 classes and breaks down their ratings, ending with 15 S-rank freshmen, an announcement that immediately fills the room with laughter. Since S-rank requires surviving and completing all 3 quests, instructors question this unusually strong cohort. Before representatives boast about gifted recruits, with one class claiming 2 and another 2 B ranks, the director confirms 13 gifted freshmen, their highest total in nearly a decade, leaving one advisor to lament that his group alone received none of those talents. However, the director tells Cheon his supposedly talentless Class 7 still established 2 academy records. First, 2 non-gifted students from one class both earned S-rank ratings, an unprecedented pairing. And second, Gu set the freshman intelligence record while another distinction still awaits. Xiao's combined attributes are the lowest ever recorded, making their achievements spectacularly opposite, and amusing enough that even Dawn Academy's principal has personally noticed the mismatched S-rank pair. Back in the hall, teleportation restores every candidate and removes their test injuries entirely, while Xiao receives an S rating, 40 credits, and 800 points for completing all 3 quests. Confused by the safe zone checkmark, he realizes Gu carried him there after he lost consciousness, just before the revived ponytailed archer spots him and approaches with visible relief, thanking both partners because their boss fight still helped her secure an A-rank result. She admits the king's area attack eliminated her, then eagerly asks whether they killed it afterward, and Xiao confirms they did, validating her faith in the pair despite her early exit. Their reunion draws a contemptuous scoff from the muscular Class 3 instructor standing nearby, who credits pure luck and claims Xiao would have died hundreds of times without Gu. Before he can answer, Gu approaches through the crowd and calls him aside, asking to discuss their recent battle privately, away from the listening freshmen and instructors. Once alone, their post-debrief becomes quieter than the battlefield but nearly as careful. He thanks her for carrying him, while she frames their cooperation as mutually profitable, explaining that without his interruptions, her final blast could never have reached the boss's head. And Xiao recognizes that beneath her composure, every decision follows remarkably clear calculation. Gu admits his attributes make interrupting a boss theoretically impossible, yet promises to keep that contradiction secret, and a visibly relieved Xiao accepts her discretion with an awkward but sincere thank you. She then reveals every nameplate's smart brain interface includes communication, suggesting they add each other, and explains that silently saying its name summons the student's basic information panel. They invoke Smart Brain together, turning their academy IDs into something resembling supernatural smartphones. His panel displays 40 credits and 800 points before he shares student ID 21235. Prompting a friend request from Gu Xiaoyu, whose own student ID is 211107. Xiao accepts immediately, formally connecting their private interfaces for whatever challenge follows next, before Qin Chuan orders every F-rated freshman to assemble at the academy entrance right away, while everyone else must use SmartBrain's map and report to the central playground. As the crowd disperses, Qin watches the 2 record holders walking away together, then calls Gu back alone, separating her from Xiao without offering any explanation. He opens the map and follows its route through the courtyard toward the designated field, wondering whether Qin selected her for the S rating or noticed something deeper, where growing crowds make him question how Earth ignores so many people disappearing simultaneously, until Gu checks his nervous expression and he insists he has revealed nothing improper. Before academy staff shout for everyone to clear paths and stop clustering chaotically, organizing the arrivals into separate class formations across the bright open athletic field. At the central platform, a blue-haired upperclassman waits beside a floating crystal terminal and introduces himself as Dawn Academy's student council president, welcoming the newly admitted students. The president announces their principal is delayed, so he begins offering the academy's formal welcome, until a deafening roar tears through the speech and silences the entire playground, sending students into alarm as every head snaps toward the impossible sound overhead, where a colossal purple-black dragon descends through swirling violet energy, dwarfing the assembled freshmen. Xiao can only stare, because fantasy just arrived without bothering to remain metaphorical, and the dragon answers his disbelief with another roar directly above the terrified crowd. Its authentic presence freezes Xiao completely, instinctive fear overriding every rational command to move. While even Gu trembles in place, unable to move beneath the creature's predatory pressure, the beast lands beside the platform, carrying a white-haired elder whose calm sharply contrasts everyone's panic, and he apologizes for arriving late because unspecified trouble delayed him along the way. This formidable rider is Dawn Academy's principal, introduced while still standing beside the dragon, prompting the council president to call his entrance ceremony slightly too grand for freshmen, only for the elder to explode angrily, denying that the dragon ride was theatrical showmanship, since urgent travel forced the choice while the unruly beast already frightened his students. Xiao realizes this principal alone possesses authority to inspect his concealed top student talent. But the elder merely praises the impressive new freshman cohort's promising entrance test abilities, then focuses one sharp blue eye across the field, seemingly fixing upon Xiao, whose surprise suggests the principal's attention landed exactly where he feared most of all, before an amplification spell spreads violet light around the platform and carries the elder's voice. As he skips introductions, addressing students unhappy about being invited under baffling or unpleasant circumstances. First, he blames every midnight admission on the admissions department's spectacularly inconsiderate scheduling, and promises future letters will arrive during daytime, sparing recruits from late-night abductions. Then his humor disappears as he addresses the two questions every freshman is asking: who the academy represents and what its students must ultimately become. Pioneer colonists. Their destination is planet Norma, the dangerous realm everyone here calls the New World, and Dawn Academy exists solely to cultivate outstanding pioneers capable of conquering that territory. From the moment they open their letters, he declares their ordinary earthly lives finished, because some will command armies as generals and seize entire regions in Norma, while others may become grand magi, pursuing magical truth and mastering its laws, or rise as leaders powerful enough to establish the new world's governing rules. Strength, knowledge, authority, even immortality await anyone capable of opening that world's treasures. Before the principal announces a new exception to freshmen's traditional ban from Norma, the top 3 scorers on their upcoming comprehensive exam may enter early, despite the president's safety objection. One severe glance from the elder turns that objection into an immediate survival assessment, and the student council president hastily claims he simply misspoke, abandoning resistance on schedule. So the principal dismisses everyone and closes the ceremony before fresh objections develop. Xiao notes the president's extreme fear, but prioritizes exploiting academy resources to become stronger, until Qin calls him by name and orders him to remain behind momentarily, leaving Xiao to approach the advisor and ask what he wants from him. Where Qin explains Gu refused the class monitor position normally assigned to the entrance test champion, Qin immediately assigns the vacancy to Xiao, promising extra credits, resource quotas, and special privileges, then names him acting monitor until re-election after the 3-month comprehensive exam, leaving no room for consent. With the appointment already registered, Qin departs and leaves the freshman manual to Academy AI, while Xiao remains behind, lingering on one particularly persuasive and dangerously vague word: privileges. Soon afterward, he reaches the Academy's enormous student dormitory complex to claim his accommodations, where a uniformed receptionist explains doors lock from 7 at night until 6 each morning, and staying outside through curfew costs credits before his new status catches her attention, causing an immediate switch from bored professionalism to sparkling admiration for the acting monitor. She offers personal assistance with his supplies and room, a promotion in hospitality arriving remarkably fast. First comes a green freshman uniform, while her blue attire identifies second-year students, then a private single room reserved for monitors, unlike the double rooms assigned ordinary freshmen. She hands over his ID tag required for curfew checks, purchases, and class attendance, introduces herself as Zhang Tingting, offers academic help, and connects with him through Smart Brain. Before leaving, Tingting reminds the new monitor to choose his courses carefully for the coming term, and he correctly links her sudden warmth to the privileges Qin mentioned earlier so vaguely, confirming the academy maintains a rigid hierarchy where strength determines treatment and opportunity. Alone in his room, Xiao commands Smart Brain to open the full course schedule, and discovers extensive combat, secondary attribute, and mandatory Norma history, language, and geography classes, requiring 1 basic combat course plus 3 secondary courses beyond every compulsory subject already listed. Yet his doubled learning efficiency makes broad improvement possible, precisely what his fatal attributes demand. So he selects versatile basic swordsmanship, survival-focused physical arts, meditation for mental energy, and footwork, then confirms those 4 choices beside the 3 compulsory Norma subjects, because strength governs everything here. The next morning, rhythmic shouts echo across the basic swordsmanship training ground as practice begins, where he repeatedly drives a longsword into a wooden post, earning 2 proficiency points per strike, correcting each swing from his waist instead of his wrist while top student doubles every lesson. And once the fundamentals settle into muscle memory, his strikes accelerate without sacrificing control. Within 90 minutes, basic swordsmanship reaches level 3 and his strength rises from 2 to 3, although the achievement leaves him collapsed beside the post, arms threatening immediate resignation. While the substitute instructor condemns the freshmen's miserable foundation and their questionable course selection judgment, third-year student Cheng Na then declares nobody leaves until their basic swordsmanship reaches level 3, prompting exhausted classmates to obey through tears and privately upgrade their substitute teacher into a devil, because ordinary progression from level 1 to 2 requires 3 or 4 hours of non-stop swinging. Hearing that ultimatum, the newly recovered freshman approaches instructor Cheng Na before the others finish, reports his level 3 proficiency, and requests early dismissal before his basic meditation class starts. Her confident expression tightens as she turns, clearly expecting an excuse rather than a record. Since claiming level 3 during a sub-2-hour first lesson sounds less impressive than outright impossible, and recognizing Xiao Lin as the single-digit freshman, she assumes the reputed exam freeloader wants another shortcut. Internally, she rejects his claim. Level 3 should remain impossible on her first day teaching freshmen, but he calmly offers his data panel as immediate proof, inviting her to inspect it herself. Cheng Na merely scoffs at the word data, still certain the numbers will support her, and requests high-level teaching permission, opening the academy's costly all-system combat simulation arena instead, which instantly drops the startled freshman into a purple wasteland piled with countless skeletons, as his substitute instructor materializes in skeletal armor, preferring direct combat over boring numbers. The arena forms around them as an immense abyssal battlefield where even the scenery promises consequences. Built by stripping laws from planet Norma and spending astronomical resources on the ultimate training space, where participants cannot truly die. Although that reassurance arrives with an important correction, every sense remains completely authentic inside, ensuring simulated wounds still deliver genuine pain. Cheng admits activating this arena costs her heavily in exchange points, making disbelief financially personal, then surrounds her student with undead soldiers and orders him to prove level 3 swordsmanship through combat. Each skeleton matches the goblins from the entrance exam, an opponent he already understands well, and clearing the dungeon earns early dismissal now, plus permanent permission to leave future lessons early. The system offers 2 victories: survive 40 minutes or kill 20 skeleton soldiers before falling, leaving him to conclude that opening a full undead dungeon for verification qualifies Cheng as dangerously obsessive. Before the arena grants him one E-rated fine iron dagger, giving his practical examination a sharper syllabus, while the approaching undead clarify that his 2 available strategies carry radically different pressure: either defend, evade, and somehow stall an entire armed mob for 40 punishing minutes, or attack decisively, forcing a path through 20 targets before their numbers bury him. So he chooses violence with excellent time management, cleaving into the nearest armored skeleton, and a blue-edged follow-up severs its skull, immediately raising the kill counter to 1. After confirming their weak points require roughly 2 strikes each, he turns toward the remaining 19. Calculating 40 precise blows should finish 20 enemies, provided exhaustion and encirclement never ruin the arithmetic, then charges directly into the mob, surprising the instructor who expected immediate surrender, because instead of apologizing, he displays solid footwork, efficient force generation, and disciplined cutting angles. He slips past another armored guard and drives a luminous slash across its exposed weakness, maintaining crisp movements and accurate judgments while hostile blades continue converging from every direction, until Cheng concedes his technique surpasses ordinary freshmen, with only his disastrous base attributes limiting him. Watching his stamina collapse, she realizes he chose swordsmanship and meditation together, specifically to rebuild those stats, and somehow secures 13 solo kills despite a body whose numbers should make that impossible. Reaching 13 of 20 with 28 minutes remaining, already a small miracle by her estimate. But accumulated fatigue finally slows his reactions, allowing a pursuing skeleton to slash him from behind. And Cheng silently decides the lesson has gone far enough, expecting reality to end his resistance, while he braces on his weapon amid the closing undead, seemingly 1 strike from collapse, only to activate heavy slash and scythe through 3 soldiers at once, raising 16 kills, shocking Cheng far more than the counter, because a freshman with his record should not possess that skill. Momentum carries him through 3 more targets in rapid succession, pushing the tally to 19, before one final downward strike crushes the 20th skull and satisfies the dungeon objective. Completely spent, he remains upright only long enough to face the speechless substitute instructor and remind his senior, between ragged breaths, that her requirement has now been completed. Cheng finally recognizes his entrance test success was never simple luck, however suspicious his attributes appeared. While elsewhere, the student council president receives files covering every S-rank and A-rank freshman, where his green-haired assistant hesitantly presents one course schedule requiring immediate presidential attention, explaining that a particular freshman selection appears far beyond merely ambitious or eccentric, because Xiao Lin has apparently enrolled in every available course, turning registration into an endurance event. Meanwhile, the principal privately reviews an impossible discrepancy with the academy's floating main control intelligence. Enrollment totals 1,360 students, yet the central computer clearly records only 1,359 admission letters, an unprecedented mismatch since Dawn Academy's founding, which the white-haired AI should understand better than anyone. She insists exactly 1,360 letters were issued without error, prompting him to demand Xiao's file immediately, but politely reveals even the principal lacks permission to view that specific admission letter. The answer visibly shocks the elder, whose highest authority has somehow encountered a locked door, and she confirms his position changes nothing, sharing his surprise at the forbidden record. His narrowed gaze weighs the anomaly, recognizing someone or something outranks him inside his own system, before he abandons direct inspection and orders every accessible freshman letter backed up and encrypted, a command the main control intelligence accepts without hesitation, unlike his request for the protected file. She begins encryption while the hidden letter remains untouched behind permissions neither can override, securing all 1,359 accessible records for principal-level viewing while preserving one file under maximum protection. The AI asks whether he intends to conceal which student owns the missing letter, and he confirms he returns to the New World tomorrow, leaving little time for precautions, because after his departure he wants irrelevant outsiders prevented from interfering with that child's growth. He entrusts Academy affairs to the intelligence, who cheerfully accepts responsibility for whatever comes next. By the following day, students crowd the cafeteria buffet, unaware of the protections quietly surrounding one freshman, until Zhang Tingting recognizes the freshman who collapsed after one class and alarmed the council president, leaving him mildly horrified that yesterday's exhaustion has already become cafeteria-wide public knowledge. She blames simple bad luck and admits Chengna possesses an overwhelming, legitimately terrifying presence, before he asks whether only teachers can open the Academy's holographic simulation field. His senior explains monitor privileges include viewing classmates' basic data and managing their class group, plus approving simulation field requests from classmates, administrative powers hidden behind that innocent title. While monitors may submit their own applications directly without waiting for another student's approval. Following her directions, he finds student mode under special and sends an application for AI review, despite her warning that freshman requests are normally rejected before ambition reaches the entrance. Only for his panel to approve access instantly, nearly making her inhale the entire drink. She protests that her own monitor waited 3 weeks, whereas this freshman received executive speed service. The field normally serves sophomores, cost 500 exchange points per opening, and refunds only successful clears, leaving him just 300 points afterward, so failure cannot be included in the strategy, especially when only the comprehensive exam's top 3 freshmen receive early entry into the new world. The monitor position will also be re-elected afterward, threatening every privilege he currently plans to exploit, while stronger rivals will certainly challenge the weakling once examination rankings settle the argument. With Gu Xiaoyu leading Class 7's strength and Wang Dalin close behind, demanding rapid improvement before then. He thanks the senior and leaves for class, already committed to training harder than his schedule suggests. Watching him depart, she decides that determination explains how he became acting monitor despite everything. Inside the physical education classroom, exhausted students recover among exercise machines as their next lesson approaches, where Class 6 freshman Liang Ziyue loudly attacks Qin's judgment for appointing someone with miserable stats, and Wang Dalin joins him, insulting both the advisor and the supposedly unqualified acting monitor, dismissing Xiao's private after-class training as theater while promising revenge against Gu for looking down on him. Liang suggests skipping the 3-month wait and teaching their shared target an immediate lesson, proposing help from a disciplinary sophomore whose punishments convert broken rules directly into point deductions. Unaware of them, Xiao remains on the treadmill after class, earning doubled basic physical fitness experience, until his new skill reaches level 1 with 18 of 100 points accumulated, and he finally stops near 7 o'clock, exhausted but satisfied with the session. A 10-minute walk should beat curfew, while repeating this routine could reach level 2 next week, yet the classroom door refuses to open when he turns its handle to leave. That resistance immediately catches his attention because ordinary closing mechanisms do not behave backward, and closer inspection confirms someone deliberately deadbolted the physical education classroom from outside. Repeated rattling only echoes through the empty gym, offering proof without any useful rescue, leaving him trapped by whoever skipped the elementary step of checking whether anyone remained inside. With dorm curfew approaching, he grudgingly prepares to sleep among exercise equipment for the night, until every classroom light suddenly clicks off, transforming inconvenience into something deliberately suspicious. After a tense pause in darkness, he lies back down, conserving energy instead of panicking, then laughs off the scare as lights out while questioning why a wealthy academy cuts power overnight. Outside, Liang reports the curfew violation to second-year disciplinary head student Chen Yu, demanding exemplary punishment, and Chen accepts enforcement duty while the principal is away and the council president handles larger problems. Chen adds that he also supervises first years, so no freshman infraction escapes his notice, while Han Sen, a Class 8 disciplinary sophomore, volunteers to sweep the training field personally, privately enjoying Liang's evidence delivery service while he plays the respectable face of enforcement, because a newly appointed monitor should carry enough exchange points to make tonight profitable. Han unlocks the classroom, expecting easy prey, but the darkness answers with complete silence, and both enforcers find only abandoned equipment where their supposedly trapped freshmen should be. Han falters under Chen's question, pointing uncertainly toward the room he personally secured, then claims he heard suspicious noise and merely suspected someone might be hiding inside. That someone is already slipping through the doorway behind them, breathing carefully and moving unseen. Chen notes the contradiction. An externally locked door should have made an occupant impossible. So Han nervously accepts the convenient explanation that he imagined everything, then resumes patrol, while privately raging because his carefully prepared payday has somehow walked out behind him. Xiao reaches the trees before exhaling, having escaped punishment by a margin measured in heartbeats. Yet remaining outdoors after curfew still threatens point deductions if another patrol spots him. The locked room and perfectly timed inspection now look less coincidental than a scripted ambush. Before an unexpected sight above the forest abruptly interrupts his reconstruction of the trap, two crescent moons hang overhead, confirming this sky is certainly not Earth's familiar one. He remembers the Academy supposedly replicates Norma completely, meaning the new world has two moons, but returning toward the training field risks another patrol, so shelter becomes tonight's primary quest, until a huge shadowy creature materializes nearby, smoke curling around its armored head. Xiao freezes as the creature's presence lands beside him, instantly erasing every thought of shelter, while a luminous violet eye narrows, fixing the stranded freshman with unmistakable attention, and moonlight reveals the colossal purple dragon resting across the trees directly before him. He recognizes the principal's mount from the entrance ceremony, which makes this meeting considerably worse, as one enormous wing shifts and the awakened beast raises its armored body, towering over him with blazing eyes while violet smoke coils between them ominously. Every survival instinct votes unanimously, and Xiao sprints away before the dragon can move. When nothing pursues, he dares to hope the beast declined a midnight freshman snack, then spots a secluded house through the trees, finally finding somewhere safer than open forest, and bolts inside without debating the owner's hospitality policy or tonight's emergency check-in fee. Under its wooden shelter, he checks behind himself and sees no pursuing dragon, but unfamiliar scents and rustling nearby suggest this refuge is far from ordinary, because an oversized black rooster watches him from a garden packed with strange vegetation, where cabbages grow taller than people, leaving the word vegetable under serious structural pressure, and clusters of glowing red fruit release a sweet fragrance, though edibility remains dangerously uncertain. His attention returns to the rooster, whose muscular size makes ordinary chicken comparisons feel inadequate, although hunger briefly upgrades it into an imaginary plate of rich beggar's chicken, and the rooster's red eye immediately sharpens, apparently objecting to becoming anyone's dinner, before it launches skyward and breathes a roaring stream of fire straight at him. Xiao twists away as the enormous bird dives after its opening blast, claws extended. Before its claws connect, a hand calmly seizes the rooster by the neck mid-attack, leaving Xiao staring at the newcomer who ended a fire-breathing charge with insulting ease. The gray-haired man accuses this curfew-breaking freshman of invading his garden to steal dinner, and an awkward silence follows as both consider how remarkably convincing the evidence appears, until Xiao cautiously asks the stranger's identity before attempting any defense of his innocence. He introduces himself as Song Junlang, head of Dawn Academy's logistics department and garden owner, then demands compensation because a reckless freshman frightened his chicken while violating curfew on day 2. Xiao apologizes, explaining the locked training room and dragon forced him into this unauthorized refuge, then begins recounting the chain from deliberate confinement to his desperate escape through the forest, including Han and Chen's empty room search, which exposes the disciplinary setup behind tonight's disaster, and concludes with the principal's dragon looming over him, an ending that sounds increasingly fictional. But Song accepts it, promising the so-called big lizard would never attack someone this week. The reassurance lands harder than the rooster, because apparently even survival comes with a stat check, and Xiao silently processes hearing the principal's colossal dragon demoted to big lizard status. Before Song identifies forced classroom confinement as a routine disciplinary department entrapment trick against freshmen, so Xiao finally confirms someone engineered his violation rather than merely exploiting an accident, while Song explains redemption points are the Academy's hard currency and therefore worth stealing. Purchasing equipment, opening simulation fields, and acquiring rare New World resources all consume them. Disciplinary predators trap freshmen into violations, then appear offering a profitable private settlement, because credits determine both graduation eligibility and who earns passage into the New World. To avoid official deductions, victims usually surrender several hundred redemption points as an unofficial fine, and Xiao immediately realizes Wang Dalin connected his grudge with precisely this despicable machinery. But Song's thoughtful pause and suddenly friendly address signal that another transaction is approaching, because staying outside overnight and trespassing inside logistics together could still cost substantial credits. A heavy knock interrupts them, announcing the disciplinary patrol has followed Xiao to Song's door, which Song finds unusual, since those hunters never previously dared inspect logistics territory. When he offers to surrender the freshman, Xiao smoothly argues that exposing their scheme deserves support, and Song approves the answer, confirming his explanations were an intelligence test with edible stakes. Before asking whether Xiao knows how to cook, an abrupt question carrying suspiciously sharp consequences. Xiao's confusion deepens happens as chef hats and utensils replace disciplinary strategy inside his head, because his entire experience consists of casually watching cooking tutorials while scrolling online. Song accepts these immaculate credentials, promising to handle the patrol and protect every point, provided his guest prepares beggar's chicken using the increasingly distressed fire-breathing bird in his hand. Xiao repeats the assignment, stunned that tonight's escape route now requires cooking his former attacker, while Song presents two options: face deductions outside or cook inside and receive full protection. With the patrol waiting, Xiao accepts the culinary route and its deeply questionable ingredient list, whereupon Song carefully demands confirmation that this arrangement is entirely voluntary and absolutely unforced. So Xiao agrees 3 times while every instinct files a silent objection to the contract. Satisfied, Song sends him inside to hide quietly while he confronts the gathered disciplinary group, and Xiao thanks his new protector, unaware exactly what protection will cost by morning. Outside, Chen Yu and Han censure Song's casual greeting with guarded expressions, while Song welcomes the celebrated sophomore leader and disciplinary star by name, sarcasm fully operational. Chen claims their patrol detected abnormal movement from the principal's dragon and feared an intruder, then insults Song for wasting another night on useless projects inside logistics again. Song merely asks whether Chen actually identified whatever caused that supposedly abnormal movement, and advises the patrol to finish its own work before interfering with his department. Han invokes Academy-wide inspection authority, declaring Song cannot obstruct their search for a missing freshman. But Song cuts him off, ordering the low-level subordinate to stay out of senior business, then threatens a direct report to the principal if they continue trespassing inside logistics territory. Chen accuses Song of wielding the principal's name as pressure instead of legitimate authority, claiming everyone knows his strength ranks below C and personal appointment alone secured leadership. As Xiao listens from hiding and recognizes Chen's hostility extends far beyond tonight's curfew hunt, especially toward a department head dismissed as an unqualified connection hire by Chen. The two leaders stare each other down while even Song's rooster remains unusually quiet, and Xiao wonders whether his protection agreement is about to become ringside seating. Before Song scoffs, apparently finding Chen's confidence more amusing than threatening at all, and notes that arriving through connections while provoking him hardly demonstrates celebrated intelligence. Han counters that friendship with the principal cannot place logistics above academy law or inspections, until Chen's terminal interrupts with an incoming voice call from the student council president. His anger tightens into discipline, and he orders the unexpected call connected immediately. The student council president's hologram asks why Smart Brain reports Chen inspecting the logistics department, then orders him back immediately and expressly forbids disturbing Minister Song any further, ruining Chen's long-awaited chance to provoke the department head beneath official cover tonight, while Han protests that their president cannot protect a freshman possibly hiding inside. The president answers that both principal and academy owe Song an enormous favor, granting him freedom unless his actions threaten the academy's core interests, which tonight clearly does not. Chen grinds his teeth, but the order leaves his supposed inspection authority nowhere to stand. So he calls the search off, dragging a bewildered Han away from logistics, after warning Minister Song to watch his back before departing in furious defeat. And Song returns the warning with a smile that somehow makes it sound less metaphorical. Once they leave, Xiao apologizes for pulling Song into conflict and questions the mysterious favor. But Song laughs, insisting Chen came mostly to annoy him because they never get along, then hooks an arm around Xiao and cheerfully redirects the night toward promised poultry. While the reluctant chef warns authenticity is impossible and Song only demands something thoroughly cooked. Using remembered tutorials, Xiao seasons the prepared bird, wraps it in leaves, and seals everything with clay, then buries the bundle beneath a roaring wood fire as Song watches his improvised technique, and warm drinks beside the flames finally give Xiao his first peaceful moment since arriving. 2 hours later, the clay shell opens around a golden chicken releasing a rich aroma, and Xiao exhales proudly, deciding his first cooking attempt at least looks remarkably successful. Perhaps, he thinks, hidden chef talent has been waiting alongside everything else inside. Song praises the delicious appearance, sounding every bit like a man whose experiment just found seasoning, then hands Xiao the first portion, inviting his unsuspecting junior to collect the cook's privilege. Xiao asks whether Song plans to eat because sharing still seems like basic survival etiquette, but Song insists the first bite belongs to the chef and Xiao admits he skipped dinner. Hunger settles the argument, so Xiao sinks his teeth into the golden roasted meat, discovering tender, fragrant flesh unlike any chicken he has tasted during his ordinary life, until Song clarifies that he wants a report on Xiao's body, not his restaurant review. And that oddly clinical question lands while the confused freshman takes another trusting bite. Moments before a violent shock flashes through him and turns confusion into sudden alarm, as burning pain tears across his stomach, seemingly melting every organ from within. Song calmly asks for additional symptoms and advises endurance until the reaction passes, revealing exactly why he never touched the meal, while Xiao finally recognizes experimental betrayal. But the furious accusation dies with his strength as consciousness begins slipping away. Golden energy surrounds his rigid body, lifting him into a silent potential awakening state, while blazing currents race through his blood and spread the agony across every limb, converging inside his chest like an internal furnace violently forcing dormant power awake. Yet beneath the suffering, Xiao senses an unfamiliar strength surging through his entire body. as Song records the hybrid chicken's severe rejection response and still unconfirmed awakening benefits, then waits beside his unconscious test subject, postponing conclusions until the freshman wakes. And daylight rises over another academy building while that dangerous transformation reaches its aftermath. Morning light enters a cluttered logistics study filled with books, formulas, bottles, and unfinished research, where Xiao wakes beneath clean sheets, dizzy but mercifully no longer burning from within, and Song welcomes his finally conscious subject while casually carrying a tray of glowing produce, prompting Xiao to bolt upright and accuse the trusted minister of using him as laboratory vermin. Song claims he tested everything personally and guaranteed survival, which hardly refunds last night's agony, then disarms the furious response by noting Xiao apparently feels completely healthy now, and recommends checking his status panel before continuing their rather well-earned attempted murder discussion, because Song's confident smile promises the results will turn rage into something considerably more useful. Xiao studies him suspiciously, recognizing another gamble yet unwilling to ignore potential gains, so he grants one final measure of trust and summons Smart Brain's blue interface. The panel reveals Strength 4, Physique 5, and a full F physical attack rating. Numbers so unexpected that Xiao's guarded expression instantly fractures into pure open disbelief, since Strength gained 1 point, Physique gained 2, and Physical Attack climbed from F-, an overnight improvement he considers impossible under every rule the Academy has taught him, before discovering basic physical training also leaped 2 levels, reaching level 3 with 1 experience. Across the room, Song eagerly records both the attribute boost and accelerated skill growth, then explodes into triumphant laughter, celebrating proof that his dangerous experiment genuinely worked. Xiao demands details about his involuntary promotion from freshman to lab rat, already identifying the chicken, and the suddenly cooperative researcher offers him a chair before beginning the overdue explanation. Song bred Taigo Ironcrest chickens by crossing domestic poultry with Ironcrest birds from Norma. To explain why, he asks whether Xiao has encountered familiar otherworld stories before, then imagines a primitive caveman abruptly transported into a modern city without preparation, and Xiao recognizes the theory. Unfamiliar germs would erase him before civilization could impress him, an undignified microbial defeat that leaves progress celebrating over one extremely confused ghost. Song confirms Norma and Blue Star differ just as sharply, making ordinary bodies dangerously incompatible. Therefore, only qualified second years normally enter, after their attributes reach the minimum adaptation standard, inspiring Song to use New World creatures' innate attributes to accelerate freshman adaptation. Although his first method involved eating them raw, gaining stats, becoming violently ill, and nearly dying, so years of research focused on reducing rejection until hybridization produced this improved approach. But each food therapy works only once, because the recipient develops resistance afterward. Repeating chicken cannot help Xiao, yet Song possesses many other edible hybrid breeds, exposing the bargain's real destination. One willing freshman serving as an entirely unpaid test subject, and Song's pleased little laugh provides all the confession any disciplinary hearing would need, though Xiao accepts under one firm condition: no future meal may endanger his life, before asking how long he slept, only to learn the reaction consumed 2 full days. Panic hits immediately as he imagines missed classes driving his precious credits below 0, but Song already secured approved leave, even covering nightly stays at logistics instead of dormitory, releasing every visible trace of tension from the suddenly protected freshman's face at once, who heads back toward class while Song reminds his newest research partner to return tonight. As elsewhere, Gu quietly eats in the cafeteria, unaware what 2 missing days have changed. At a nearby table, Wang Dalin loudly complains while his purple-haired ally tries calming him, despite admitting he also suffered a thorough reprimand over their failed scheme against Xiao, and Wang openly confirms they locked their target inside, only for him to vanish 2 days, while Gu overhears the name and realizes her partner has indeed been completely absent, until a familiar uniform suddenly stops beside her table and pulls her attention upward, revealing Xiao, freshly returned and greeting her with infuriatingly casual calm after everything. So Gu immediately demands where he has been throughout those unexplained 2 days, but he promises the complicated story later and settles down across from her. Just as Wang spots his supposedly ruined rival comfortably eating inside the cafeteria, then marches over, mocking the acting monitor for disappearing instead of suffering expulsion, and declares training cannot fix trash, nor can clinging to Song erase their strength gap. Xiao answers with effortless sarcasm, politely congratulating the speech before dismissing its speaker, which detonates Wang's temper because indifference wounds his pride far better than argument, as he insists Song's protection means nothing where raw strength remains the Academy's absolute truth, and promises the approaching comprehensive exam will expose the supposedly permanent gap between them, while Xiao quietly dismisses the entire performance as the same predictable, exhausting obsession, until Gu redirects him toward a new Academy notice he has not seen, announcing that their first comprehensive examination has suddenly been brought forward on the official schedule, from 3 months after enrollment to only 1.5 months total. The half deadline leaves Xiao calculating how little time remains to strengthen every ability. He rushes toward basic meditation, knowing 2 missed days could already threaten his accelerated campaign, only for substitute instructor Li Meiling, a third-year student dressed like an enraged witch, to recognize him and accuse him of bullying Cheng Na before forcing her to accept his reckless demands, while Xiao protests that Cheng initiated the sword test and he passed through ability alone. an explanation Lee rejects so completely that the entire meditating classroom feels the impact. Because Cheng warned him against training magic and martial arts together, yet he allegedly pressured her, and only Cheng's personal notice persuaded Lee to admit such an ungrateful freshman. Before she angrily insists youngsters cannot understand the sincere intentions behind that warning, then reveals Cheng once mentored another stubborn junior pursuing the same dual path, repeatedly urging him to specialize but eventually allowing his chosen training to continue, until half-developed spells and swordsmanship left him defenseless during his first New World battle, where an alien race tore him apart and returned scarcely more than bloodied remains, leaving Cheng haunted by the belief that her reluctant permission helped cause his death. And beneath Lee's anger, the remembered grief finally completely silences her sharpest words, while Xiao stands quietly behind her, absorbing the warning without offering another defense. He finally understands Cheng opposed dual cultivation from fear, never contempt for his weakness, and sincerely tells Lee that the painful history has changed how he sees her concern, yet promises he will never allow that former student's tragedy to repeat through him, because every difficult course he chose serves one purpose: surviving inside the new world. Lee accepts the conviction but refuses private makeup lessons, leaving 2 missed classes entirely his responsibility. Released to study alone, he passes rows of meditating classmates, searching for somewhere to begin, when Gu Xiaoyu spots him and immediately waves him toward the empty place beside her, before handing over 2 days of carefully organized notes, proving exactly who he can count on. Xiao settles down and studies every page, determined to rebuild the lessons without special treatment, learning first that magic recognizes 4 fundamental elements: wind, fire, water, and earth, which powerful mages manipulate, arrange, and combine almost like programmers constructing increasingly formidable spells, while meditation begins by sensing those elements in the air, connecting with them, then attempting control. Yet when Xiao concentrates until sweat beads across his face, something feels fundamentally wrong, because despite all that effort, he cannot perceive even a trace of elemental energy. That night in logistics, Song sees the problem immediately and names it a meditation bottleneck, prompting Xiao, already harvesting vegetables, to ask whether any edible perception booster happens to exist. Song asks whether Xiao mistakes him for Doraemon. Even logistics has limits on convenient miracles, then explains that reaching perception from 0 to 1 commonly demands 1 or 2 months, although progressing from 1 to 50 may take those same people merely another week or two. Xiao cannot spare that time. Barely more than a month remains before the comprehensive examination, so Song recommends consulting magic course classmates, since higher intelligence produces stronger elemental sensitivity. That single word gives Xiao an idea. Acting monitors can inspect every classmate's basic attributes, and the highest intelligence in Class 7 unquestionably belongs to the record-setting Gu Xiaoyu. He opens Smart Brain and checks her profile, expecting useful numbers but finding something far worse, because Gu's 36 intelligence accompanies a natural lifespan of 26, leaving her only 2 years. The next morning, Xiao crosses the meditation hall with one uncomfortable question refusing to leave him, then pushes through the classroom doors with enough urgency to erase any graceful entrance, where Gu, already meditating alone, greets him warmly as though nothing has changed. He drops onto the neighboring cushion, visibly struggling to find a delicate opening, and finally explains that acting monitor permissions let him view every classmate's profile, lifespan included. Then he admits seeing her 2 remaining years, immediately realizing curiosity now sounds painfully invasive, but her startled silence gives him no safer route out of the conversation. Gu simply confirms the number, composed enough to make his own awkwardness look louder, before asking why he suddenly decided to raise such a deeply private subject. He leans forward and bluntly asks whether she suffers from something severe or terminal, promising that surviving death together means he will help her find some answer. His earnest offer catches her completely off guard, and she pauses before responding that no illness is responsible. She was simply born with this unusually brief lifespan. The explanation jolts him, because nature itself apparently started her countdown far too early, and suddenly her intense interest in the Academy's lifespan rewards makes perfect sense. Gu explains that failing admission would have erased her memories and returned her to Blue Star, where 2 remaining years meant helplessly accepting death, but his support secured her only opportunity. She thanks him sincerely. Flustered, he calls their entrance test alliance merely a mutually profitable arrangement, then admits she is his friend now and promises help whenever she needs it. Before either can dwell there, Lee arrives lamenting the handful of credits behind substitute teaching. Entering the crowded room, Lee spots the pair already seated among their meditating classmates, and grudgingly praises their punctuality, which he accepts with an almost shamelessly cheerful repetition, before warning that last class's failure must not repeat, or he should practice swordsmanship instead. He agrees instantly, privately deciding her petite, cute appearance belongs to an explosively tempered package. Then the room settles into silence as every freshman closes their eyes and begins meditating, while sweat soon returns to his face, confirming concentration alone has changed nothing, because just like yesterday, not one elemental trace reaches his stubbornly ordinary senses. With conventional methods useless and time collapsing, he chooses the single move still available, activating Top Student and turning the classroom into a field of copyable abilities, as violet energy silently sweeps across every seated freshman in search of meditation mastery. Most students reveal nothing, while only a few possess basic meditation at merely level level 1, but he continues scanning, knowing the strongest result should be sitting somewhere nearby, until Goose 36 intelligence delivers exactly what he expected, basic meditation level 6. He copies it immediately, gaining 3 precious minutes inside a genuine mage's perception. And suddenly the darkness erupts with colored elemental currents, the world finally visible through magical eyes. So he memorizes that sensation, racing to unlock his own skill before the borrowed state expires. At the front, Lee quietly dies of boredom and dreams about escaping to visit Cheng, then dismisses the class as mostly hopeless, granting only Gu even a trace of magical promise, until an unfamiliar disturbance catches her eye and instantly erases every bored complaint. Because elemental power is gathering around Xiao voluntarily, responding before he consciously reaches for it. Lee cannot understand how a freshman with only 2 intelligence could produce such impossible resonance, while he keeps drawing power inward, holding the borrowed perception long enough to make it permanent, until basic meditation finally unlocks at level 1, exactly as Song promised perception once would. The triumph lasts one breath before Lee marches over and calls the suspicious freshman out, demanding whatever underhanded trick transformed yesterday's blindness into today's spectacular elemental commotion so quickly. Then she grabs his wrist and orders him outside before he can manufacture an excuse, leaving Gu watching in surprise as her suddenly successful friend gets hauled away, where Lee immediately commands Smart Brain to display Xiao Lin's complete skill information. Basic meditation level 1 is genuinely registered, so now she wants the impossible breakthrough explained, and his guilty smile announces that honesty has already quietly left the building, before he blames superior learning ability and one miraculous epiphany, fooling absolutely nobody, then claims Gu's private notes and assorted foods at Song's residence fueled desperate late-night studying. Perhaps some fruit temporarily strengthened perception, allowing him to stumble across the threshold by luck. Lee considers the explanation, because experimental nonsense from that logistics madman is unfortunately believable, but warns his laboratory rats face real danger since Song wagers even his own life. He accepts the warning, then eagerly asks when their class will begin learning actual spells, earning a sharp forehead flick that answers his optimism before her lecture does. Because meditation is merely admission, elemental control and spell construction both demand intelligence. With only 2 points, mastering spells during freshman year is pure wishful thinking. And top student cannot solve daily cultivation when each 3-minute copy requires 7 days recovery. Yet surrendering magic would leave him without the extra trump card needed for the approaching assessment. And Lee realizes his miserable statistics drive this dangerous dual cultivation because he simply wants survival, until one pointed cough interrupts her sympathy before it becomes too publicly visible. So she declares only exceptional kindness made her personally guide him this far, then asks whether he saw other candidates attacking with staves during the entrance test. That reminder lands. His original staff produced Energy Ball before he understood any spellcraft. Because staves are optional amplifiers that reduce elemental control thresholds and directly strengthen perception, while entrance test novice models carried pre-enchanted Energy Ball, usable despite insufficient intelligence alone, and the Academy's trading area sells other novice staves containing ready-made basic skills. He thanks her enthusiastically, finally seeing a practical route toward the magical weapon he needs. But Lee warns that marketplace bargains may be defective, explode after 2 uses, or hide scams, and his meager intelligence should stabilize one basic enchantment before chasing flashy high-tier equipment. He promises caution and thanks her again, already preparing to test that advice, while she turns toward the classroom door, apparently finished with this exhausting rescue mission, but pauses to insist that survival matters more than showing off or gaining strength. Watching her leave, he recognizes the soft heart hidden beneath every sharp word, then enters the equipment market carrying 800 exchange points and a very narrow budget, because 500 must remain untouched for his approved holographic simulation, refundable only after victory, leaving 300, which a week of comparisons and bargaining finally stretches across 2 customized weapons. An enhanced staff carries Ice Bolt, while his new enhanced short sword carries Windblade. A week later, equipment, skills, and mindset are finally aligned for the dangerous experiment ahead, so he returns in combat gear, looks across the arena, and decides the moment has arrived. The E-rank field asks confirmation, freezing 500 points until victory refunds them or failure consumes them, and he presses yes without hesitation, placing every remaining exchange point behind one attempt. A Red Academy warning identifies the freshman requester as Blue Data assembles the battlefield around him, then burning stone and flowing lava replace the arena as the holographic field opens, leaving him alone among smoke and embers while the system orders immediate readiness. Inside blazing lava cave, cleared either by reaching its depths or surviving 2 besieged hours. The first siege arrives instantly as red-eyed, stone-armored rats flood from the cavern darkness. Against the E-rank difficulty he deliberately selected to control both scenario and monster strength. Dozens charge together, crystal-covered claws, turning the narrow path into a living avalanche. And he draws the new short sword, choosing this first clash to test its enchantment, before Windblade tears through a target with a piercing current designed to shatter armor, then spreads in intersecting arcs, carving entire groups apart before their charge can reach him. He drives forward through the storm, convinced relentless growth is the only answer to every death assessment, and pivots between attackers, letting steel and wind erase each opening around his body, until the shattered pact dissolves into blue fragments, leaving only fading snarls behind. The armor-piercing effect makes this slaughter far faster than his earlier skeleton battle, but another roar answers his confidence, and the surviving rats suddenly open a path. For a stone-armored leader, one full size larger, his burning aura promising a harder test. Instead of retreating, he judges the towering leader perfect for measuring his second weapon and trades sword for staff, eager to see whether Ice Bolt completes the loadout. As the roaring beast hurtles forward, all burning muscle, crystal armor, and very bad intentions, but blue elemental energy gathers overhead, hardening into a crystal projectile above the staff. Ice Bolt strikes for F-rank spell damage, freezing 1 second and slowing 25% for 3 seconds, and completely encases the charging beast in solid frost before its claws can reach him. One smooth switch returns the short sword to his hand while the freeze holds. Then a full-force windblade cleaves straight through the immobilized leader's crystal armor, leaving no corpse, only fading blue fragments and one thoroughly terminated durability test. The verdict is exactly what he wanted. Short sword pierces armor, staff controls crowds. With the combo confirmed, he turns toward the system's rapidly updating results screen, which awards 32 sword experience, 4 staff experience, and 8 physical fitness experience at once. A brutal improvement over weighted running, where 30 minutes earned only 2 measly points. Only 15 minutes have passed, and he remembers the arena does not demand immediate departure, so he paces his stamina, heads deeper, and turns remaining time into free training, until a swarm of alerts suddenly materializes beside his head and breaks his focus. They come from the Academy Forum, where his quiet absence has somehow become headline material. A real name post questions why the single-digit acting monitor received perfect attendance privileges at all. Wang Dalin accuses him of skipping 2 days, flattering Song Junlang and deserving immediate expulsion. And Xiao recognizes the author, whose talent for annoyance apparently trains without any cooldown. Before he can respond, the page disappears, replaced by a blunt post not visible warning. An administrator deleted the malicious personal attack and banned Wang Dalin for 7 days. A private message from Cheng Na supplies the only answer he actually needs: train hard. And he smiles upon realizing the senior herself quietly closed the entire circus, because strength answers childish provocation more cleanly than trading posts with Wang ever could. He raises his short sword, accepts that verdict, and makes becoming stronger his only reply, before walking deeper through corridors lined with ember-bright crystals and unnatural silence ahead. Every chamber here precisely recreates a real environment somewhere within the new world, which makes him question why lethal exams remain necessary when simulations already exist. But the complete silence suddenly feels wrong. The massive rat colony outside made constant noise, and an explosive strike answers from the darkness, blasting rock across the passage without warning. He launches backward through smoke and debris, escaping the impact before the tunnel collapses, then lands battered but alert, eyes locked ahead as something enormous advances through it. A broad silhouette steps through the dust, carrying an axe wide enough to explain everything. The intruder is a lava berserker, a black iron rank troll native to planet Norma, and its arrival reveals the hierarchy dividing both Academy fighters and New World species. Ordinary rank covers anyone below 100 total attribute points, including nearly every freshman. Black Iron begins above 100, the minimum threshold for entering the New World, and above that foundation weight bronze and silver, each demanding another violent climb. Until gold stands higher still, power measured by tier Xiao has barely begun approaching. Beyond gold come dark gold and powers so distant they barely resemble student rankings, with legendary completing the revealed sequence far beyond every rank he can presently challenge. But this troll already exceeds 100 total attributes merely by entering Black Iron, while Xiao's improved strength, agility, intelligence, and constitutions still total only 13 points. A direct contest should therefore end as an absolute crushing defeat across an entire major rank, and the Berserker proves that math immediately, sweeping its gigantic axe through the corridor. Unlike the entrance test Goblin King, this enemy suffers no suppression. Every attribute operates freely, forcing him to question whether skill can bridge a gap that statistics call impossible, before another downward charge detonates the floor beneath the troll's blazing weight alone. Yet Xiao twists clear again, riding the shockwave instead of meeting the axe head-on. He could quit now, accept failure, and permanently lose the frozen 500 points, but real danger will never offer its exit button, making surrender a worthless survival strategy. So he tightens his grip and chooses to discover exactly how far he can push, ducking beneath a horizontal axe sweep whose pressure alone scars the stone behind him, while his eyes track the attack pattern, searching through overwhelming speed for one usable weakness. He slips behind the Berserker during its follow-through and reaches the unguarded back, then drives Windblade upward, pouring armor-piercing energy directly into the exposed target, but the Black Iron body absorbs everything. His strongest cut cannot break its defense. The troll wheels around with another red axe arc, punishing the failed strike instantly, yet its turning speed trails its frontal assault, giving Xiao one exploitable advantage. The Berserker lunges again behind a wall of red force, turning the corridor into a furnace, and Xiao watches the angle instead of the weapon, finally recognizing the opening he needs. Every directional change slows the troll, while its chest core flashes immediately before each attack. When one arm rises, that glowing core remains exposed for a fraction too long. So he draws the staff mid-dodge and commits both weapons to a single-timed counter. Ice Bolt detonates across the berserker's torso, freezing the target and interrupting its momentum. Then the staff drops away as his short sword returns before the 1-second freeze expires, and he crashes downward through breaking ice, driving steel directly into the chest crystal. The red core fractures under the concentrated blow, proving this armored wall actually has a door. Its roar shakes the cavern as the health bar finally loses a visible portion, but rage replaces surprise, and the troll draws back one enormous fist for retaliation. The counterpunch lands before he can escape, crushing through his guard and torso, then launches him across the corridor, where stone catches his body harder than armor. His core strike worked, but the price is a broken left arm and injured ribs. Still conscious and armed, he activates Top Student because surrender is still unavailable. It detects F-rank Berserk, 30% more attack, 15% less defense, 60 seconds, followed by 10 minutes at 40% lower statistics, and he copies it immediately. 1 minute is enough, red power flooding every muscle as his answer locks in. His first Berserk-powered strike tears through the weakened core with green blade energy, and the health bar plunges, confirming this desperate gamble can finally wound the impossible. Because both combatants now gain 30% attack while surrendering 15% defense. Their weapons collide at close range, but Xiao's reinforced blade no longer bounces harmlessly away. Now his green arcs bite through the troll's armor, turning defense from certainty into damage, and another cut drops its health towards 70% while exposing vulnerable movement beneath. He targets the giant's limb joints next, applying hard-earned gaming instinct to this living boss. The second strike tears through a leg joint, reducing mobility and shaving away more health. 18 seconds remain, forcing every movement, breath, and slash into ruthless efficiency now. The wounded troll roars and floods the cavern with red fury, preparing one last assault. Its axe rises overhead as both berserk auras burn toward their final seconds. But Xiao ignores the weapon, circles inside, and commits everything to the final strike. Piercing the exposed core is enough. Windblade drives straight through the glowing crystal, until it shatters completely and the black-clad berserker dissolves around the fatal wound. Victory arrives exactly as Berserk deactivates, leaving him upright for one stubborn heartbeat. Then the promised backlash cuts every attribute 40% for the next 10 minutes. And his body collapses like lead, too heavy for even exhausted pride to carry. Yet he laughs from the floor, having killed a black iron enemy with 13 total points. Before a new system alert flashes across his vision and interrupts the celebration, his soul strength threshold has been met, satisfying Top Student's hidden upgrade conditions at last. The upgrade completes while he pushes himself upright, staring at the unexpected result. Top Student advances to Level 2, turning this brutal victory into permanent power. Level 2 raises learning efficiency to 120%, grants 2 E rank or lower non-talent copies per 7-day refresh, each lasting 3 minutes without accumulated uses, while 20% sharper analysis supports learning and replication. Those upgrades can wait. The dungeon still needs clearing before any theory deserves his attention. Deeper inside, he finds a volcanic altar bearing the unmistakable golden quest marker, and one hand on the stone finally converts survival, analysis, and reckless nerve into progress. As blazing lava cave registers complete, releasing him from the dungeon at last. Afterward, he practically moves into the simulation field, training there twice every week, crossing frozen plains and scorching deserts where giant scorpions replace ordinary sparring partners. Then carrying staff and steel through swamps crowded with creatures far larger than comfort, until rainforests and serpentine humanoids become another chapter in his expanding combat education. Between those expeditions, he catches his breath beneath academy trees and reviews the results. Yet neither slain monsters, cleared dungeons, nor replicated skills produces another talent upgrade prompt. Eventually, he abandons the guesswork, bins the empty bottle, and changes his approach. Instead of theory crafting blind, he will find someone capable of explaining the missing rule. His question takes him to Song's academy laboratory. What exactly is soul strength? Song finds the sudden curiosity rather premature, since sophomores normally study this subject, but explains that soul strength is the innate baseline power of the soul itself, unrelated to genes, bloodlines, or cultivation, and untouched by stacked attributes or practiced skills. In other words, people cannot change it, which makes Xiao's discovery immediately suspicious, because an immutable threshold should never have appeared after killing that black iron monster. Song answers that paradox with his own surprise, a caged fire pheasant and massive success. For Xiao, another chicken is already enough context to activate every survival instinct. Worse, the newest trial requires consuming this unfortunate bird raw for maximum effect. Then Song unveils a warm, twitching plate whose censorship performs the only act of mercy. The meal remains aggressively fresh while Xiao's expression files a silent laboratory complaint. Still, debt and repeated help corner him into accepting chopsticks with understandable dread, and he downs everything in one gulp, earning Song's delighted approval from behind, before going rigid as the texture introduces itself on contact with unforgettable hostility. He barely reaches the counter, body folding while the researcher watches for results, because the taste is revolting and his stomach begins punishing every heroic decision. 3 hours later, Song wants data while exhausted Xiao only wants more oxygen. His panel reveals fire resistance level 1, 30% less fire damage and immunity to ordinary burns, making him the first freshman to gain this training-resistant passive skill, exactly as predicted. Xiao would even eat a xenomorph raw for soul growth, but Song repeats its impossibility. Then Song remembers the first freshman assessment is days away. Reconnaissance in Sunset Valley. It begins the day after tomorrow at 8, leaving almost no preparation window. Unlike simulations, dying there deducts 10 lifespan years immediately, with no exceptions or retries. Song can offer only one strategy: respect personal limits, because survival outranks every score. Soon Class 7 gathers under a cloud of dread until one student tries rallying everyone. Their advisor answers with harsher medicine, calling those defeated faces a collective disgrace. Wang Dalin instantly appoints himself shield, executioner, and one-man solution to every threat. Since several of his courses reached level 2, he promises everyone can coast behind him. The advisor cuts this campaign speech short and orders the entire room silent at once. Then he names Xiao Lin commander-in-chief for this assessment, detonating the classroom's fragile unity. Classmates immediately question trusting the student whose recorded attributes once occupied the basement. Wang publicly rejects the decision outright, demanding grounds strong enough to justify it. He argues Xiao cannot beat one goblin and survived only through a girl's assistance. The answer is administrative, not heroic. Acting class monitors command assessments by default. But behind crossed arms, the advisor weighs evidence the others have not seen. Xiao's current stats are 10 strength, 6 agility, 5 intelligence, 9 constitution, total 30, more than triple his original total within 2 months, leaving even Qin unable to explain it. At 7:59, the advisor orders everyone seated and motionless as the countdown begins. 3 becomes 2, and bravado finally gives way to focused silence inside the classroom. One arrives with Xiao calm and his allies quietly checking their panels in silence. At exactly 8, blue teleportation pillars erase every freshman from the classroom at once. They reappear in Sunset Valley, where orange skies hang above narrow stone ravines. Unstable portals eject hooded groups across the canyon floor, some landing harder than others. Violent wind immediately lashes robes, dust, and first impressions of this hellish terrain. Xiao confirms the location while his scattered classmates struggle to regain formation nearby. Their mission is escaping the Thunder Kingdom army for the safe zone. 30% success earns everyone 10 credits and 100 points. Mapping border camp above 70% accuracy earns 10 credits and 200 points. Killing Wolf Cavalry's commander pays 15 and 300. Failure comes after 1 week or 70% losses. At the valley entrance, Gu takes stock. A supply station lies 3 kilometers ahead, essential when this assessment can last 7 days. Xiao agrees, while noting that 30% completion is enough to pass the entire class. Wang weaponizes that arithmetic, accusing him of planning to sacrifice 70% as bait. He broadcasts the accusation immediately to everyone, feeding suspicion before leadership can answer it. 10 lost years make the claim terrifyingly persuasive to freshmen already guarding limited lives. Wang questions their commander's attendance, loyalty, and ability to keep anyone there alive. One nearby classmate rejects the provocation, yet proposes splitting into 2 teams instead. The suggestion catches the gathered students off guard, but at least replaces shouting with structure. Xiao refuses to force obedience merely because the academy handed him command alone, so evenly divided teams can pursue separate plans and complete their chosen missions independently. Wang accepts immediately, confident that separation finally gives him the stage he wanted. He personally recruits volunteers for reconnaissance, guaranteeing safe passage through the entire assessment. A bespectacled freshman warns that escape and reconnaissance pull teams in opposite directions, but Wang's followers chase the 200-point reward after a month of hard training. Gu objects that everyone carries only 1 day's supplies, making the station essential. Wang dismisses caution and plans to steal provisions directly from the Thunder Kingdom camp. A silver-haired student proposes regrouping after 3 days to finish the compulsory escape together. Both sides accept the meeting point as insurance if either separate operation goes wrong. Xiao fixes reunion at this entrance, noon 3 days later, regardless of either mission status. Wang publicly rejects cooperation and promises reconnaissance rewards will answer every remaining insult. 39 students follow him toward the optional objective: infiltrate Thunder Kingdom's military camp, leaving Xiao with 21 teammates, assigned to find the supply station and wait carefully. Some immediately calculate that 21 exceeds the 30% threshold, so they could simply escape. Gu asks whether their commander truly intends abandoning both optional missions altogether now. His answer is a quiet smile. Nobody said they were abandoning anything at all. Wang expects them to hide and survive, but Xiao has designed something much larger. Their first objective is total survival, removing expendable classmates from strategy for good. Their second is taking every available mission reward, greed finally serving collective survival. With priorities set, 21 cloaked figures move deeper between the jagged canyon walls. Xiao finds leeward shelter and calls a break before exhaustion becomes another enemy. Everyone drops gratefully, but each water bottle already looks painfully inadequate for 7 days. While others recover, Gu records conditions and calculations instead of wasting the pause. Xiao asks for supplies estimate, turning growing discomfort into an immediate planning problem. Academy issued each person 500 milliliters of water and 2 compressed biscuit packs, enough for 1 day. At noon above 40 degrees, triple water loss means nobody lasts beyond beyond tomorrow without resupply. The team finally understands why Gu prioritized the station and why raiding guarded camp was reckless. Xiao calls a frontal robbery suicidal, grants 10 minutes to check equipment, then orders canyon-side movement. The station is close. Erase tracks, watch for patrols, and advance without advertising 21 targets. The group hugs canyon walls through another blast of wind, keeping silhouettes narrow and footsteps controlled. Then a gray-haired teammate calls for the commander, her voice cutting through the storm. Xiao turns sharply, tracking her nearby discovery before anyone breaks formation or cover. Ahead stands the supply station, complete with wagons, stacked crates, and unsettling silence. No people or movement appear inside, making the empty facility suspicious rather than safe. Xiao forms trios to search quietly while hidden, ordering instant reports of anything abnormal. He enters with Gu and the gray-haired teammate, assessing the interior carefully before moving deeper. Shelves and storage bays are empty. Someone cleared every usable supply before their arrival. The gray-haired woman openly praises Zhao's calm command, reliability, and uncanny situational awareness. She assumes he must have been impressive on Blue Star long before academy life. He admits being an ordinary graduate who plays games, particularly strategy games, in spare time. Gu ends the biography and calls everyone towards something hidden among the empty shelves. At first, the carved cylinder resembles a wine stopper with a spiral pattern, but Gu identifies the spiral as an exclusive emblem, making discarded wood useful evidence rather than trash. Another searcher produces a written manifest, giving their investigation something far more concrete. Xiao, Gu, and the gray-haired teammate gather around while the Academy translation interface opens. Dated March 12, year 45, it lists 500 wheat bags, 100 wine barrels, and 50 salt sacks. Written in Norma, it belongs to a merchant caravan supplying Border Garrison's 3rd Division. With a 7-day cycle and today, March 16, the next delivery should arrive today or tomorrow. Suddenly, the empty station becomes ambush ground. Hijack the caravan and solve thirst without assaulting the garrison. Beyond supplies, caravan crews know the garrison layout, offering intelligence without infiltrating the camp. Wheel ruts reveal their route through a one-carriage bottleneck, practically an engraved invitation to ambush. Xiao divides 21 fighters into 3 groups, hiding melee combatants behind both canyon walls. Ranged fighters claim the high ground, gaining surprise, visibility, and the valley's nastiest firing angles. Gu holds the rear to seal retreat, turning escape into another carefully scheduled disappointment. Xiao takes the front, ready to disable the caravan leader before resistance can organize. His final orders are surgical. Wait, strike quietly, keep everyone alive, and never summon patrols. Night settles beneath twin crescent moons before wagon silhouettes finally enter the narrow pass. Wooden wheels grind over stone, each creak carrying the caravan deeper into prepared territory. Towering bird mounts pull covered wagons while armed escorts advance alongside them under torchlight. Inside one wagon, a dark-haired caravan woman suddenly parts the curtain, her attention sharpened. A muscular escort officer notices her reaction and asks what disturbed the otherwise quiet passage. She has already sensed people waiting above, proving their concealment fooled eyes, not instincts. Alarmed, the officer prepares to order the escort unit backward before the trap closes. The woman calmly refuses, treating 21 hidden attackers less like danger than an interesting wager. Her guard protests, clearly recognizing that confidence and survival are not always traveling companions. She orders the caravan onward anyway, choosing information over retreat and keeping everyone exposed. According to her, the true prey remains undecided, an answer the coming ambush must settle. Below the concealed ranged fighters, 3 wagons and their escorts roll squarely into position. At the front, Xiao watches the lead mount approach, waiting until every target commits. At the rear, Gu charges purple magic through her staff and silently confirms the signal. The attack begins as violet projectiles rain from the cliffs, announcing the ambush with zero subtlety. Escorts scatter beneath the barrage, shouting warnings while magic detonates around boots and wagon wheels. Above them, Academy archers loose fire arrows together, adding disciplined volleys to the opening shock. Glowing arrows descend across the trapped convoy, leaving escorts nowhere comfortable to stand or regroup. Then the caravan woman answers with sweeping flames, incinerating or diverting the incoming volley. One archer freezes in disbelief. Their carefully prepared opening has just been erased midair. The woman steps outside holding fire, mocking the hidden spectators for their rather impolite welcome. Flames split into multiple lances around her, locking onto students scattered across the cliffs. The barrage tears through their positions, forcing desperate dodges and confirming the ambushers were already exposed. Meanwhile, melee students surge from both walls, blades raised against the caravan's waiting escorts. Their first swords crash into armored defenders, but surprise fails to produce an immediate collapse. One student is kicked backward mid-strike, learning that these merchants definitely budgeted for professional security. The narrow pass erupts into close combat as cloaked students and escorts exchange frantic blows. A powerful blue slash cuts through the melee, knocking another attacker off balance and out of formation. Recognizing the failed engagement, Xiao orders his front line to fall back before losses multiply. He calls wounded fighters inward and tightens the formation, trying to recover control under pressure. Across the battlefield, the caravan woman watches with a faint smile, entirely unsurprised by their retreat. Her fire lances keep sweeping through the canyon, splitting students apart and punishing every exposed angle. With formation broken, Xiao abandons containment and prioritizes capturing the enemy leader before everyone collapses. Before the flames can finish them, a purple blast strikes toward the caravan woman from behind. Gu creates the opening and shouts for Xiao to move, committing their last clean chance. Purple force collides with orange fire, briefly swallowing the leader inside a violent elemental crossfire. Xiao charges straight through the remaining flames, his passive resistance finally earning its dramatic entrance. The woman recoils in genuine surprise as he emerges unburned enough to keep attacking. He closes the distance instantly, but her escort officer rushes between them before contact. The officer blocks Xiao's blade and orders him away from her, steel grinding against steel. Xiao recognizes him as the man who shared her wagon, confirming a valuable personal connection. Their blades clash repeatedly while Xiao redirects the duel away from the fire-wielding commander. The officer presses hard, yet Xiao absorbs the rhythm and forces an opening through technique. A blue surge gathers behind the escort officer's next attack. Threatening another formation-breaking slash, Xiao's focus sharpens. Instead of contesting raw power, he prepares a decisive counter. Heavy slash detonates through the exchange, tearing both weapons free and breaking the officer's stance. Xiao seizes him as a hostage and threatens death, then realizes nobody here understands his language. The escorts stare in tense confusion, proving intimidation loses considerable horsepower without the translation package. Their commander raises fire again, anger replacing amusement as her captive officer remains exposed. But the officer orders his lord to ignore him and continue attacking, refusing to become leverage. Her jaw tightens. The order leaves her choosing between victory and someone she clearly values. She chooses him, extinguishing the flames and offering surrender, cooperation, and one condition: spare him. With both hands raised, the caravan commander formally yields, ending the battle before fatalities arrive. Still holding the officer, Xiao worries the surrender might hide another attack he cannot understand. Gu rushes over, finally bringing the one weapon this standoff desperately needs. Translation: she confirms the woman surrendered, promises cooperation, and only asks that Xiao spare her officer. Relieved, Xiao remembers Gu's normal language already reached level 5, solving the communication problem. He orders every captive-bound wounded students bandaged and the entire convoy returned to the station. Ropes secure the caravan commander while a student escorts her away, ending any immediate rematch. Injured fighters limp back together. One even demands retrieval of his severed arm piece. Back at the empty station, armed students guard closed rooms while treatment continues nearby. The caravan commander, her officer, and other escorts sit tightly bound among stacked crates. Outside, classmates ask their monitor for direction now that survival has replaced the original confidence. Xiao apologizes for underestimating the enemy while helping bandage a student's injured arm. He never expected a Thunder Kingdom caravan to hide a mage capable of wounding everyone. The others reject blame. Academy materials said Thunder Kingdom mages were exceptionally rare. They insist his rapid retreat order prevented far worse injuries once their surprise advantage vanished. Still, the gray-haired teammate suspects their captive commander's identity is far more complicated than advertised. Xiao agrees that answers come first, postponing celebration until the caravan's secrets are properly audited. He separates every prisoner for individual questioning, preventing them from coordinating stories or signals. Ju joins as interpreter while rotating guards and captives receive no chance to communicate. One bound escort is deposited alone inside a rough wooden room for the first interview. Xiao enters with sword drawn, establishing that tonight's questionnaire comes with unusually sharp follow-up questions. He plants the sword beside the first captive, converting nervous silence into immediate cooperation. Through Gu, he establishes simple rules. Answer every question honestly or accept the consequences. The bound escort sweats beneath that smile, discovering how aggressively calm can sound in translation. Questions begin with the military camp's total troop strength while Gu records every translated answer. Next come the Wolf Cavalry captain's daily departure time and the patrol's exact route. They also demand main gate watchtower numbers and guard shift frequency, building the camp piece by piece. Separate interrogations and cross-checking expose lies, leaving a reliable foundation of military intelligence. 4 main gate watchtowers rotate guards every 2 hours. Roughly 300 troops defend the camp. The cavalry captain patrols the northern canyon from dawn, returning between 5 and 7 nightly. Because every prisoner's peripheral answers match, Gu considers those details trustworthy but not necessarily complete. Xiao agrees, yet one unanswered gap matters far more than verified schedules and head counts. Only the caravan commander likely knows the camp's critical core defenses, making her silence strategically expensive. 3 interrogations yield sleep, trivial chatter, and total indifference to ordinary threats. An impressively stubborn customer, Xiao identifies the pressure point. She disregards her own life but deeply values her deputy. He orders the deputy brought in alone, alarming Gu because the prisoners might coordinate their story. That is precisely the trap. Private collusion should reveal whichever secret both captives protect most. Students drag the bound deputy across the station while he loudly curses his captors. Even their level 1 Norma speaker recognizes the repeated vocabulary. Apparently, profanity offers excellent beginner retention. They shove him into the commander's room, clear the doorway for the planned conversation. The commander turns toward her deputy, startled despite maintaining control throughout every previous interrogation. A sudden exchange erupts behind the wooden doors, pulling both eavesdroppers closer to their prize. Inside, commander and deputy speak rapidly in words that refuse Gu's otherwise reliable translation. She presses closer, listening carefully as familiar sounds assemble themselves by completely unfamiliar rules. Gu warns Xiao Lin that the pronunciation resembles common Norma, but the grammar absolutely does not. He suspects a secret code. She agrees, though the pattern feels far older than improvisation. More precisely, Gu believes their prisoners have switched to some form of ancient language. Beyond the door, both captives continue their urgent exchange beneath an atmosphere suddenly heavy with consequence. Gu recognizes fragments of pronunciation but understands nothing, so Xiao calmly takes over the listening shift. Their tone suggests no escape plan, meaning the private conversation concerns something far more serious. The commander answers her desperate deputy fluently, confident their ancient words remain safely encrypted. Unfortunately for them, top student treats forbidden languages like downloadable content and begins scanning. It detects maxed Common and Ancient Norma, plus level 5 Flame Shield and Fireball as copyable skills. Ancient Norma is exactly the missing key, and the young commander's eyes ignite with recognition. He copies its maximum proficiency for 3 minutes, leaving 1 replication charge available this cycle. Meaning arrives instantly. The deputy begs his lord to stop, insisting everything can still be repaired. She answers with chilling finality that they are already too late to reverse anything. He argues survival still offers a remedy, though their captors know troop counts, towers, shifts, and patrols. Outside, Xiao realizes the commander somehow knows exactly which intelligence the separate interrogations revealed. The deputy volunteers to bear responsibility, blaming himself for failing to protect the merchant caravan. His lord refuses that escape, declaring her own arrogance responsible for bringing them here. Terror replaces the deputy's arguments as he begs her not to continue whatever she has chosen. She gently touches her forehead against his, offering one quiet farewell before committing herself completely. A faint smile remains while crimson energy begins staining her neck and gathering around her body. Ancient words surrender her flesh and blood to dust, sending her soul across eternal night. Then she calls upon gods sleeping since antiquity, asking them to hear their humble believer. Understanding detonates. She is performing a sacrificial ritual, and Xiao smashes through the door. Her flesh and blood become the gate while her departing soul serves as its guide. Gu feels violent magical patterns spread beneath the station, their red fluctuations already escaping containment. The entire ground convulses, sending frightened students scrambling while the ritual shakes every surrounding structure. With no time for restraint or negotiation, Xiao draws his sword and attacks the chanting prisoner. Gu screams his name as red power, floods the room, and his blade crosses the threshold. The helpless deputy can only shout for him to stop, knowing exactly what comes next. Outside, the waiting students freeze in collective disbelief as the commander's desperate choice reaches its price. Xiao drives his sword down, yet she still completes another appeal to the ancient god. Her final invocation asks that unseen power to descend and unleash its wrath upon them. Blood drips from the blade as the bound commander collapses motionless across the stone floor. For the first time, Xiao faces one brutal certainty. He has killed her with his own hand. Standing over her body, he wonders why the assessment's true moral weight only strikes him now. This examination recreates an old colonial war, but reconstruction does not make its victims feel fictional. To Norma's people, the students are otherworldly invaders who arrived uninvited and stole military intelligence. These enemies possess human faces and human minds, nothing like the thoughtless simulation monsters he fought. The commander held beliefs, made choices, and loved people deeply enough to die protecting them. His blade did not destroy another convenient monster. It ended the life of a person. Yet hesitation offers no cleaner answer, because leaving her unchecked would condemn everyone under his command. Xiao accepts the cruel arithmetic. If he had not stopped her, his classmates would have died. A shaken student asks whether their class monitor truly killed the prisoner, forcing the truth outward. Before Xiao can answer, red markings ignite around her fallen body and shred the silence. The sacrificial ritual never completely stopped. Killing its caster merely failed to close the gate. He orders everyone down as a violent surge erupts beneath the room, swallowing Xiao and Gu. Fire detonates through the supply station, blasting walls apart and turning their captured shelter into wreckage. At the Thunder Kingdom camp, a towering red beacon reveals trouble directly toward the supply station. The Wolf Cavalry captain gathers his riders and enormous beasts, personally leading an immediate investigation. Back at the station, summoned flames consume buildings while black smoke coils through the canyon. Xiao and Gu claw free beneath shattered timbers, surrounded by a commotion impossible to conceal. One glance toward the smoke confirms the obvious. The military camp must already know. Students cough through debris, some standing unsteadily while others remain sprawled among burning ruins, with cavalry surely mobilizing. Every wasted second converts shock into a tactical death sentence. Xiao orders mobile survivors upright, wounded checked immediately, and everyone kept clear of the red markings. A surviving ranged fighter begins the roll call, then rallies her group to hold the doorway. Beneath fractured stone, Xiao lies across the fallen commander as smoke and embers drift overhead. The explosion also tears prisoners free, and the enraged deputy immediately charges through the ruined station. Students raise the alarm, racing to prevent every escaping captive from reaching the scattered weapons. A restraining rope snaps across one fighter's shoulder, proving the prisoners still have plenty of resistance. The ranged leader restores discipline, warning everyone against blindly chasing enemies through fire and debris. Several classmates swarm the deputy together, forcing him face down before he can regain momentum. They pin his head and shoulders, ordering him motionless while reinforcements secure the restraints. Nearby, the commander's unmoving face drags Xiao's attention back toward the life his sword ended. The sight breaks through his commander's composure, leaving him suddenly pale and unable to speak. He retreats behind a surviving wall and retches, discovering that necessary violence still collects its price. Gu follows quietly and offers water, giving him space without pretending the moment means nothing. Xiao apologizes for appearing pathetic, admitting he already killed other people during the earlier ambush. Amid fire and shouting, those deaths felt like executing a plan against hostile examination targets. This killing felt different because he watched her choose, chant, and receive her deputy's desperate loyalty. Gu listens without interrupting, offering the steady attention he needs more than easy reassurance. He finally asks whether striking instantly was wrong and whether another choice might have existed. Her answer is ruthless but honest, 1 second slower, and neither would remain alive to debate. Xiao absorbs that verdict in silence, guilt remaining even after logic confirms the decision. Gu explains that justified killing never becomes easy. Perhaps this brutal assessment teaches that lesson early. But the team still waits for its backbone, leaving their commander no time to collapse inward. Xiao steadies himself and accepts the immediate truth. They cannot remain at this supply station. The battered students gather among ruined carts, but nobody can decide where survival points next. Their bound captives complicate every route, turning evacuation into a problem with hostile passengers. Release means immediate warning. Carrying them destroys speed, so one student proposes killing every prisoner. Silence answers him, because efficiency has just acquired a face none of them can ignore. Xiao admits execution is fastest, then rejects the false choice by presenting another workable option. Gag them, mask their scent with ash and alcohol, then hide groups of 3 or 4 separately. A classmate warns the patrol will eventually discover prisoners concealed among houses and rock crevices. Eventually is enough. Buying half a day prevents immediate pursuit and lets the students relocate. Food and water, recovered from the caravan, can sustain them temporarily beyond the ruined station. Casualties include 1 severed arm, 3 mobility injuries, and widespread minor wounds across the surviving team. Someone recommends abandoning optional objectives and heading directly toward the safe zone before defenses tighten. With wounded teammates slowing them, simple survival and mandatory completion suddenly sound entirely reasonable. Xiao weighs that safer route in silence, measuring rewards against lives already hanging by threads. Gu objects. After paying this price, settling for minimum completion would waste their hard-won intelligence. He remembers her 2 remaining years. One assessment death would erase her real life completely. The safe zone remains safest, and he refuses to gamble her existence on unfinished optional rewards. Yet Gu insists only several core locations remain, while Xiao refuses exposing the entire team. He sends the main group toward the outer ridge and assigns Gu to finish mapping from distance. She asks who will investigate the command post armory and wolf cavalry encampment inside. Xiao answers with 2 words and 0 hesitation. He will enter those positions alone. The team erupts in protest, refusing to let their commander carry that danger by himself. He explains that numbers attract attention. His mission is observation, followed by immediate withdrawal. The cavalry's departure creates patrol gaps, while enemy commanders will expect fugitives running away, not approaching. Gu must command from high ground because joining him would leave the wounded group leaderless. She accepts, then reminds him the defense map remains incomplete unless its scout returns alive. Xiao answers with a quiet smile, acknowledging both the order and the promise beneath it. Decision made, he orders supplies packed, tracks erased, and the entire group moving within 10 minutes.